In this video, we're going to continue learning about Flask, HTML, and we're going to learn about CSS. So the topics for this video are we're going to review the CS50 IDE, we're going to review a little bit about Flask, we're going to review some HTML, and then we'll work on Activity 6, Part A. We'll learn a little bit about CSS, and then we'll finish it off with Part B of Activity 6. All right, so again, just to quickly recap how to use the CS50 IDE. CS50 IDE is located at ide.cs50.io. Log in with your GitHub credentials. To open a new file, you click on the green circle. I like to do this on the left-hand side. And click on New File. This is where you'll write your Python code / HTML code. And today you'll be writing some CSS code. The red circle means that you haven't saved your file yet, so whenever you see that red circle there, just go ahead and save your file. Again, just to save your file, it's Control S on a PC and Command S on a Mac. And on the right hand side is where I like to run my files, and that's in the terminal. So to open a new terminal, just again click on the green circle and click on New Terminal. So for example, if you wanted to run a Python file, it would be something like Python space file name, in this case hello.py. And just to note for yourself, the $sign is the symbol that indicates there's the command line, and anything to the right of it is the rest of the commands. Alright, so in this course, we're mostly working with Flask. So to run Flask, again, the command to run Flask is simply flask run. Alright, again, to download your file, just tap on the file, click on download, save it to your computer, and then upload it into Google Classroom. Alright, so we'll quickly review Flask, what we've learned before. So again, Flask is a micro framework that allows us to build programs without writing shared code over and over again. Flask is written in Python, and it allows us to write a web server in Python as well. This is a link to the official Flask website. Again, Flask uses an MVC or model view controller model. Alright, so minimal Flask application kind of looks like this. I always put this here just so that you remember what a minimal Flask application looks like. To run that, again, the default name of your Flask application is always going to be application.py. And again, to run your Flask application, it's simply flask run. You click on that link that's produced if all goes well, and then you'll get a web page of what you coded. Alright, again, we're going to review a little bit about HTML here. So an HTML file could look like this. This is just kind of like a sample of what HTML looks like. These are heading elements of different sizes, going from H1 being the largest to H6 the smallest. And if you were to write some HTML, put it in a file, it would kind of look like this. Some other very common HTML tags are the P tag, which stands for paragraph, BR, which stands for break, and bullet, which is LI. To create a link to another web page, you'd use the A tag, and this is a review of the paragraph tag, the BR tag, the HR tag, which you might want to try to use. It's the horizontal rule elements. Lists, again, a list would be LI, an ordered list would be OL. So the OL would be outside of the LI. Alright, again, just some very common tags here. We've got B for bold, strong for kind of like very similar to bold. They're about the same actually. I for italicized, U for underline, and EM for emphasize. Alright, today we'll work a little bit with tables. Tables are very common in HTML to organize your data. So we'd start off on the outside with the table tag. If you wanted a header for your table, it would be the TH tag. Each row is a TR tag, and each column is a TD tag. Alright, just a note for yourself, in case you wanted to manually add some spacing in your HTML, it would be ampersand NBSP semicolon. Alright, so hyperlinks, I just want to emphasize this. Absolute links link to external websites. So I gave an example here of TR Schools. And relative links link to web pages on your website. And I gave the example of schedule, which you'll work on in a little bit. All right, so let's talk about part A, and I'll kind of walk you through this. So in this activity, you'll practice using different HTML tags. So the first thing I want you to do is create a directory called activity6. And so I'll flip over to my CS50 ID over here. And I'm going to type in make directory activity6. And the next thing I want you to do is cd into activity6. And after that, I want you to make our directory called templates, which is where our HTML files will live. All right, after that, I want you to copy the HTML file that I've given you. It's on our website, advancedpython.net. It's index.html. So go ahead and copy that. Copy button's like right up here. Oops. Copy button's right up here. Just go ahead and copy it. And go ahead and paste that in. Click on Save As. Call it index.html. Put that in your Activity6 templates directory and save it. All right. Next up, create a file called schedule.html and go ahead again and get that from our website. So let's go over here again and let's go to our schedule.html file, which is right over here. So let's go ahead and copy that. And let's create a new file here, new file, paste those contents there. Let's do save as. And again, we'll call it schedule.html. And then we'll go ahead and we'll save that into our templates directory. All right, and last but not least, let's go and create our application.py file. So again, let's go back to our advancedpython.net website, copy that code right over here, go back to our CS50 IDE, new file, paste it in there, and again, save as, and again, we'll name it application.py. We'll put it in our Activity6 directory, and we'll click on Save. All right, so if all goes well here, when we type in Flask run, our web page will magically load. And you'll see here, we've now got welcome to Activity6. We have my web pages. We've got schedule.html. Don't have anything there just yet, but we'll get there. We've got Toms River Schools, and we've got a link to the Toms River Township website. All right. So again, just verify it works. Note that when you modify the application.py file, you don't need to restart Flask. However, if you do modify any HTML, you do need to restart Flask. So just try to give these a try to practice some of your HTML. So I grabbed this off of the TR Schools website. This is the address for the Board of Education, as well as their phone number. So try to match the tags here. Just try to guess what they are and try to guess how they achieve this spacing here. Different ways of doing this, so I'll let you kind of explore how to create that. Also create your own to-do list. So things to do here, things that you need to do, create some websites, etc. You can make up anything you want. All right. Also, try to practice with descriptive lists in HTML. So the DL tag is a descriptive list element. The DT tag contains the term, and the DD contains a definition. Now let me show you what that looks like in HTML. So again, so you have your term here, and then you have your definition. Term, definition, term, definition. Give that a try. See if you can recreate that, and you can come up with your own list of terms and descriptions, how you like. All right. Also, try to create a schedule for yourself. That'll go in the schedule.html page. All right. So, next topic is an introduction to cascading style sheets. So, CSS stands for, again, cascading style sheets. Style sheets were first used in desktop publishing and applied typographical styles to print media. CSS on the web provides the functionality of style sheets for web developers. And so it's kind of, the way to think about it is that it's kind of like a way to kind of separate the HTML with the style, because you can make the style different ways, and you could also apply this on more than one website. So there are different types of CSS. So there are inline styles, there are internal styles, and then there are external styles. And we'll try to practice all of these in this activity here. So there is a ranking of proximity, which means that there's kind of like a hierarchy or a precedence of which one of these style sheets takes precedence. So by default, the browser itself has certain styles built in. After that, then you've got external style sheets, then you've got internal style sheets, and then you've got element styles, which are inline style sheets. So again, there's kind of a ranking of they call it a ranking of proximity, and this is kind of like precedence of which styles take precedence over the others. Internal styles are configured in the head section of the web page and use the HTML style elements. So you put the styles inside of that head, the very top of your HTML pages, and that would apply to the entire web page documents. Now, style sheets are composed of rules. Let's take a look at some of the rules here. And so, for example, here, each rule contains a selector and declaration. So again, this is kind of the syntax of CSS, a little different from HTML and a little different from Python. So we've got our selector, then we've got a curly brace here, we've got the declaration property, and then we've got a colon, and then we've got a declaration value, and then we've got a semicolon. Semicolon separates each one of the declaration and property values. And then we have an end curly brace. All right, so again, you would put an internal CSS between the head tags. And so, for example, in the body, if you wanted to have these styles, again, you could have more than one. You'd have the color of the text, which would be blue, and the background color here, which would be yellow. Give that a try. All right. Also, you could write this in, you could specify the colors in hexadecimal, and I'll kind of like let you think about why you might want to use hexadecimal versus specifying the exact color. All right, inline CSS style examples. So inline are configured in the body of the HTML, and you use the style attribute of an HTML tag, and it only applies to one specific element. All right, so for example, let's create a heading of size 1 to red, and the way you would do that using inline would be something like h1 style color colon pound, and this is the color red in hexadecimal, red heading over here. Let's just try that right now on our existing web page. So let's go over to our index.html over here. And again, I'm going to go over here and edit our h1. So I'm going to change that to h1 style equal color, and then we'll put hashtag ff1234. Okay, and we'll go ahead and we'll save that, and we'll rerun Flask. And again, if all goes well, our h1 here has now turned red. All right, so external style sheets are configured in separate text with the .css file extensions, and they only contain style rules. they do not contain HTML rules. So for example, if you wanted to link an external style sheet, again, you would do that in the head and it would link to a separate file. This is an example of what an external style sheet could look like. And, you know, a really big question, why would you want to use an external CSS? Why would you want to use an external style sheet? And the reason why is because you might have multiple web pages as you've now been creating with your activities, and you might want to share the same external style sheet file to keep the styles consistent across your websites. All right, so in Flask, style sheets are in a specific location, which is static styles. So I gave an example of how that would look like inside of your HTML file. So you would have to use this exact piece of code over here. All right, the selector, class selector. So class selector applies a CSS rule to one or more elements of a particular web page. So for example, if you had configure.className, you could create a class called new with red text. So let's say you had like .new, and then you had curly brace color, and again, you made that red. And you wanted to create a paragraph of text with the text red paragraph. You would specify the class name, which you called new, and then that paragraph, everything in that p tag would be red. All right, so I gave an example here. Oh, sorry. There's also something called a selector, and a selector applies a CSS rule to only one element on a web page. So let's say you just had one particular element that you wanted to change, and so you created a selector called nuggets. You would use the hashtag. You'd have hashtag nuggets, and you would put that in. So you'd have hashtag nuggets, and then you would have color brown. And so if you wanted to change the text of chicken nuggets for lunch to brown, you could say PID nuggets, and that would change your text to brown. All right, so the span element, more CSS. The span element is an inline level element, and it configures a formatted area, such as within a paragraph. So just for yourself, try to create a class named school that will make the school name bold and emphasized. So to do that, you would have .school, and you'd have a curly brace, and you would have font weight :bold, and you could have the font size. You could change the font size. All right, so now part B, I'd like you to try some of these on your own and add some CSS now to your web pages. So I'd just like to point out there's a popular free and open source CSS framework by Bootstrap, which is pretty cool. And it also optionally contains some JavaScript-based templates. We're not going to cover JavaScript in this course, but I just want to let you know that it's out there. So if you want to read about more information, just go to getbootstrap.com. And so I'm just going to show you how to add the Bootstrap CSS to your web page. It's actually quite easy. So again, this is an example of an external style sheet. And so let's go over to our advancedpython.net website with that link over there. So just go down here and copy that code. So we copy that code, and then we'll go back into our index.html file, which is where we are, which is the file we're going to edit here. So in the head, go ahead and paste that external style sheet link over there. Okay, go ahead and save it. Restart your Flask again, and you'll notice that now we're using the style sheet of Bootstrap. So you notice this is this style is used across the internet, which is kind of cool. It's nicer than the defaults. Again, the defaults are coming from your browser, so feel free to give that a try. and add that to your website. If you like that, go ahead and apply that to all your HTML files. Now, some things to do for Activity 6 Part B. Again, I'd like you to practice using some CSS. So create a header of the size 3 with the text about me, and try using an inline style to change the color of the header. Then write a paragraph that includes your name, and using an inline style, change the color of your paragraph. Some other things to do: create a header of size 2 with the text about my family. This time use an internal style and change the color of the header. And then also using an internal style, change the color of your paragraph. Alright, now if you decide to use your own external style sheets, which is, again, I just want to point out how you do this in Flask, you would have to create a directory called static, and then within that directory you would create a directory called styles. I use the command here, make directory -p static styles, and that'll create both directories at once. And again, you could create a file called styles.css. It's actually up to you what you want to call your style sheet, but this is how you would link and create, using Flask, your own CSS file, your own external CSS file. Alright, so again, create a header of size 4 with the text about my town, and using external style, change the color of the text, and also change the color of your paragraph. And that's about it for this video. And so I'll see you in the Google Meet.